The third eye, aka the pineal gland. We all have one. What exactly does it do, and how can it help us chill out in this modern society, even get deeper in our meditations? So, what we've learned the pineal gland to do is, in recent scientific discovery, is that it creates melatonin. So, if it's dark outside, if it's light outside, it's the thing that secretes the melatonin in our bodies, help us go to sleep. So it's receiving data, information, right? Information, light, or the absence of it, and then using that data to what? Produce certain hormone, kind of like other parts of our body. Cool thing about the pineal gland, though, is it produces not just melatonin, it can produce a couple other things, like the most powerful antioxidant known to man, and the most powerful psychedelic known to man, DMT. So stay with me here because this information is going to allow you to go deeper in your meditation. So I'm going to teach you why the pineal gland is so special and how you can, quote unquote, activate it to get even deeper in your meditation with a very simple 3-minute technique, okay? So I first learned about the pineal gland when I was in school, digging deep into some of the, nuances of forbidden knowledge, alternative spirituality concepts, and it wasn't until the last year that I really dug in and realized that the true power of your pineal gland and how you can really get the most out of it. Okay, so if you're drinking coffee all day, just because we have different glands in our bodies. If you're drinking coffee all day, you're stressed out, you're not getting a lot of sleep, your adrenal glands are going to get worked out, and they often say that if your adrenal glands are overworked, you can never really have the energy that you want. So we have all these different glands in our bodies that serve different purposes, but the pineal gland is something special because there's actually, our spine connects from the base, right? The base of our spine all the way up to our skull. In between our different spine regions, there is cerebrospinal fluid that flows through the very the very bottom to the very top and actually passes through the pineal gland. And what's cool about the pineal gland is there's little crystals in there. And this cerebral spinal fluid passes through and tickles these crystals, and it creates a piezoelectric effect, similar to an electric eel would use to create a light around itself. So there's actually light happening in your brain, and there's energy that is being produced whenever you do this technique that I'm going to tell you about. So let's go to one of the OGs on this topic, and honestly, after this video, you should really dive in and watch this specific video. It's going to be linked down below on this Gaia, but it's Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, explains this very succinctly, easy to understand. So basically, the piezoelectric effect is the ability of certain materials to generate electrical charge in response to applied mechanical stress. Okay, and the word piezoelectric is derived from the Greek piezion, which means to squeeze or to press. Okay. And one of the unique characteristics of this effect is that it is reversible, meaning that materials exhibiting a direct piezoelectric effect also exhibit a converse piezoelectric effect, okay, which is the generation of stress when electric field is applied. So you'll know why this is important in a second, but let's go ahead and play this part of the video.
Centers in the material, which then results in an external electrical field. When reversed, the outer electrical field either stretches or compresses the piezoelectric material. Now that's a lot of words, but I want you to hang in there with me now, because I'm going to demystify that process. How is it then can we compress those crystals inside our brain? How can we apply mechanical stress? If our brain is encased in this ivory cavern called our skull, how are we going to get in there and compress those crystals?
And by the way, because you haven't watched all the videos and the content before we got to this point, because this is like episode 10 in a whole series, why you want to do this is because it gets you deeper into a meditative state and actually helps release, again, the chemicals that allow your body to go into a deep healing process. Okay, so let him talk.
Inside your skull, your spinal column, and the bone at the base of your spine called your sacrum is the most delicate system in your body called the central nervous system. In fact, without the aid of your nervous system, you couldn't digest your food, you couldn't void your bladder, you couldn't blink your eyes, you couldn't move without the aid of your nervous system. nervous system as the electrical wires that run the machine. Inside this closed system is fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. And cerebrospinal fluid has some basic functions. It acts to create buoyancy in the central nervous system. It acts to have a neuroprotective role for trauma in case there's movement or deceleration. It's the fluid that protects the brain and the spinal cord against its bony edges. It acts to transport fluids and other chemicals and nutrients to different parts of the brain and the nervous system. And finally, it has an important role to enhance conductivity or electrical charges in the nervous system. When you inhale, the sutures of your skull open up, and when you exhale, the sutures of your skull close. At the same time, at the base of your spine, where that sacrum bone exists, when you inhale, that sacrum bone flexes back, and when you exhale, that sacrum bone flexes forward. So visualize this with me. The inhalation causes the sutures to open up, there's more volume in the skull, and the sacrum bone flexing back causes that cerebrospinal fluid to drain down in gravity. When you exhale and the sacrum bone flexes forward and the system closes down and those sutures close, it begins to propagate a wave to move the cerebrospinal fluid up against gravity.
Stay with me. This is very important.
If you were to charge one molecule of cerebrospinal fluid and tag it and follow it during the course of the day, that cerebrospinal fluid will move from the base of your spine all the way up through 4 different chambers called aqueducts or ventricles in the brain, pass all the way through and come all the way down. It would take 12 hours for a healthy person to begin to move that cerebrospinal fluid all the way through that system. So in a sense, we flush our brains twice a day. What would happen if you were to contract the intrinsic muscles in your body, the muscles you use for elimination, the muscles you use for intercourse? You were to contract your lower abdomen, pull your belly button in towards your spine, and contract your upper abdomen. The act of contracting these intrinsic muscles in the ancient yogic tradition called the bandhas, as you squeeze these muscles, you begin to push that cerebrospinal fluid up.
You don't got to do it like that, by the way.
If you were to
There's a couple ways to do it.
One slow, steady breath, and as you slowly follow your breath and you contract those intrinsic muscles, as you follow your breath and you bring that breath all the way up to that pineal gland, and you hold your breath and you keep your attention on that pineal gland, that's your target. The act of contracting those muscles, along with the holding of your breath, would begin to push cerebrospinal fluid right up into your brain. And as you begin to hold your breath, you're pushing that cerebrospinal fluid right up against the crystals of the pineal gland and applying a mechanical stress. And then the mechanical stress begins to electrically activate those crystals. And when those crystals become electrically activated, we are turning on the radio receiver in the brain. Now, take a look at the ventricles in your brain. You have a 4th ventricle that sits close to the brainstem. Take a look at the 3rd ventricle. That place right there, that corner right there, is where the pineal gland sits and the dead end. Then you have 2 lateral ventricles. Now take a look at this. This is the ventricles, and it looks
This is your brain.
Like that eye of Horus that we were talking about. Here's the movement of that fluid. You can see that it comes up from the body to the brain. It passes through all of those aqueducts. It travels along the surface of the top of the neocortex, and it drains all the way back down. So then, when you inhale and take a slow, steady breath and coordinate that breath with the contraction of muscles, what you're doing now is you're delivering energy into the brain by electrically activating it. This is a magnet. A magnet has a north pole and a south pole. And the stronger the polarity between the north pole and the south pole, the stronger there is an invisible electromagnetic field that exists around the magnet. You can't see that field with your senses, but it exists. And in fact, if you were to take a magnet and place it on top of metal shavings, those metal shavings will begin to organize themselves right in the patterns of the electromagnetic field. energy having an effect on matter. Your body is also a magnet. It has a north pole and a south pole. And Asian cultures have known about this for thousands of years. Some of the research that was done at Yale University in the 40s in studying eggs of different vertebrates, when they studied those eggs, they found that 100% of the time, that the positive charge was always at the head, and the negative charge was always at the tail, meaning that there's an invisible electromagnetic field that is actually in the shape of the egg. Well, the body has the same mechanisms. We know that by the time we're 35 years old, most of our energy is stored in the body subconsciously, and 5% is stored in the brain and the mind. Why? Because if you're thinking certain thoughts that are producing certain chemicals that make you feel a certain way, and those thoughts are connected to anger or aggression or fear or guilt or suffering or shame, you're taking thought and beginning to store it as energy by feeling the same emotion in these lower centers of the body. So then, by the same means, the more we live by these first three centers in our body, the more we are drawing from this invisible field of light and information and turning it into chemistry. We're causing the very field around our body to shrink. And now we're becoming more matter and less energy, more particle and less wave.
So there's a little bit more information you'll need to dive in to fully understand that part, how it relates to the quantum field, the unified field, the magnetism, the energy that is, you're emitting from your body, and how that relates to your current state of being. So, but let's just talk about things in terms of, going deeper into your meditation or even just chilling out. So if you could even practice real quick with this video, I don't know if you're in a spot where you can do this, if you're listening to this while you're driving. We actually have these little masks that they gave us at the event. We went to an event, Kabir, my girlfriend Rose, and my mom, we all went to events. I actually went to two, and we meditated and did this breath for almost every single one of the meditations. And we'd put these on because blacking out your eyes actually allows you to produce more melatonin. And when you do that breath and you do it for several minutes straight and you do it with a level of intensity that is just, beyond what you think is possible for you to do, you push harder every single time. When you're done doing the breath, you just fall gracefully into an even deeper meditative state. Okay, so what does that actually look like? So go ahead and take inventory right now of what it feels like to squeeze where your perineum is, so like right in between your legs, okay? That muscle, you want to squeeze that, and the same muscles that you use to urinate, that you use to sexually reproduce, just go ahead and squeeze those as well. And like what you're doing is, yes, it might feel a little weird, but you're actually starting the cerebral spinal fluid movement process up the spine as you do that. And so as you squeeze and you move, and then you start to squeeze your lower abdomen and then your upper abdomen, as you do that and you're sitting up straight, you're moving those cerebral spinal fluids up your spine. You're doing this as you are inhaling slowly. So what he has us do is exhale all that air, blow that air all out of our nose, and then we inhale through our nose very slowly while we're keeping our attention on the squeezing mechanisms, right? And we're squeezing as we're inhaling. And so the pressure, the internal pressure from inhaling, and we're filling our lungs up with air, as well as like the muscles squeezing up against the abdomen, is actually moving that cerebral spinal fluid up our spine, and you keep your shoulders locked down, and then it shoots up into your head. And then you keep your attention on that too as you do it to amplify the effects, because where your attention goes, energy flows. And so you keep your attention on that, and then you hold it. You hold it at the very top, and you try to squeeze again even more. And then as you're squeezing, like you're really, it's not like you're trying to make something explode out your chest. You're trying to just push that cerebral spinal fluid up into where it hits your pineal gland. If we were to take an x-ray machine and look at a side profile of what's actually going on, your brain is actually moving. Okay, it's like moving like that, and because the cerebrospinal fluid is being pushed up. Now, you can't see it from the outside, but internally, that's what's going on. And I don't know if there's a video on it, but it's here, but that's one that we saw at the event. So we, when you do that, you hold it. You hold your breath, and usually there's some music and there's some instruction that goes along with this. I do have a video linked down below of this in action. Essentially, you let go, and as you let go, you exhale. And then you feel, with your eyes closed, and you'll notice how like your brain just seems to light up with energy. And it may even feel uncomfortable, all right? It may even feel like you might be having a headache, but it's not a headache. It's just a new feeling, something that's you may have not experienced before, right? And so then you do it again. You exhale all your air out, and then as you inhale, you squeeze from the base of your spine all the way up to the top, and you hold it. And you keep holding, and you squeeze, and then you exhale. It's actually pretty simple. And as you do this, you're some people even like visualize themselves moving this energy from the base of their spine all the way up to their head. And if you learn more about the energy centers, maybe you call them chakras, you're moving these base metals and liquefying them into gold, into diamond, okay? You're turning all of this raw sexual energy, or this creative force, and moving it through past your heart and into something that is more calibrated, right? Of higher frequency, you could say. But without all that, after you get done with this breath, you're going to feel really, really good, really relaxed. And you might even start to like move around a little bit, okay? Because that's just energy being liberated. Okay, that's your body, that's your neurology waking up to something that it hasn't felt in quite a while. Okay, because we often have these neurotic holding patterns, is what one of my health coaches used to say, neurotic holding patterns that prevent us from being totally expressive, from freely moving the way that we want to. You know, what's the difference between a gymnast who is incredibly flexible and then somebody that sits at their computer all day and never for once stretches? Probably a big difference in their ability to stretch and move their bodies, right? So same way with people's breathing and their ability to breathe and their energy levels and their mental acuity. So as you do this breath, you may actually knock out if you're doing it right. And you have your blindfolds on as you go into your meditation. You might visit some pretty interesting places, okay? I've witnessed people visit places that were indescribable, that were more real inside their head than anything they had previously experienced in their known reality. Okay, so just keep an eye out for that. It tends to happen. If you want to learn more about this whole process, highly encourage you to check out this series on Gaia. I started at episode 10, but I would go through every single episode. If you really want to master this, don't go anywhere else to learn about meditation. All your personal development moving forward, if I were to prescribe you the best course of action, would be to just dig into some of Joe Dispenza's stuff and understand the science behind why we do these meditations, why we do the breath, understand how the quantum field works, and really it's going to help you create the life that, you want to design. So, and a life that you can share with others and feel really good about. You can just feel abundant and just live in love, you know? Conquer, dominate your path, as you should. So, hope you enjoyed this video. Hit like, subscribe. If you want me to do more stuff like this, I'll definitely go in depth. But with all things that are new, you don't want to just dive straight into the deep end, you know? This is a good start for you, and I'd encourage you to check out doing this breath in your next meditation. And it also will help you, if you're having trouble going to sleep, this exact same breath will knock you out, okay? Because you're essentially defeating the monkey mind. Tim Ferriss, the angel investor dude, he talks about defeating the monkey, like getting control of your monkey mind. This breath is like grabbing that monkey and then like telling them to sit down. So if you've ever had issues with sitting down as you meditate, this is going to immediately help you. If you ever have issues, maybe you're on a plane and you have anxiety because you can't, like because of the flight, whatever, you're afraid of something, this will kill your anxiety on that. All right? It's just about remembering to do it. Because if you know how to do this, and if you're like me, you know how to do this right, but then you forget to do it, then you're just going to fall back into your own pattern, which is almost an everyday occurrence. But the more you catch yourself, then the better you get. So keep catching yourself, become more aware of the thoughts that you're thinking on a daily basis, and practice this breath, and you'll be Gucci. So check out the links below, and I'll talk to you soon in the next video.